Thank you all so much for joining us in today's session, and a happy Women's Month to each and every one of you. Now, as we open our panel discussion, I'm reminded of a quote by one of my favorite professors, Harvard professor David Yoffie, and he says, Apple's market share has always been lower than its consumer mind share. I'll repeat that again. Apple's market share has always been lower than its consumer mind share. And I think as you provide this brief introduction, I welcome your response to Professor Yoffie's concept on brand building, and really that critical component of creating that gap in the market and the business in that gap between the market share and the consumer mind share that exists. Catherine, I'll start with you and then pass the mic to Ego and Julia.
So thank you for the wonderful introduction. Pishlik is ethical and sustainable accessories atelier based in the east city of Cape Town in South Africa. We founded the business in 2013. And what has really been at the core of what Pishlik is bold jewelry for inspired women. And what that means is we use the conduit of jewelry, the way it's been used since the Neolithic period, to bring women from different cultures, different continents, and also different lineages together through the healing and empowering medium of jewelry. Because jewelry invites ritual, jewelry invites intention and attention, and jewelry is something that accompanies women through incredibly powerful moments in their lives, initiations, transitions. And I think because of that, building our brand and our brand equity as such in our community's experience has really been based on trust, on intimacy, on connection, and authenticity. And so I think that's why we are still around today, I guess, why we've got such avid, loyal fans who, know Pishlik owns one piece, she often owns 15 or more, and they continuously send us photos of, tag us in photos of all their different pieces, almost marking, quite because I'm the founder and I'm the creative director, but marking different points in our business's evolution, but also important points in their lives. So I think it's really, the jewelry is a conversation with our community of women, and it's a beautiful, intimate exchange from a group of women making it, myself included, and touching the lives and the intimate parts of another woman's body as we touch her as she kind of navigates her world.
Absolutely. I love these triggers that you use on trust, intimacy, connection, and authenticity. And I think that is something that's resounding to a true standstill. Or the time that stands still when one really engages with jewelry. Ego, how has quite an incredible brand organization like Miss London really engaged with that concept, and of course the Miss London brand and how you have built that? Ego, I believe you are on mute. Well, it's officially a virtual conversation now.
So thank you so much for having me on this webinar. I'm very excited to always share all the insider details of running and creating a brand and starting a business and everything. So Miss London is co-founded by myself, my sister, and my business partner, Linda. We are passionate about natural, clean beauty that just enhances the way that you look rather than transform your whole face into something else. But the main thing is that it's about easy beauty. It's about living with ease and enjoying the makeup again, because in recent years, social media has really sort of turned makeup into such a complicated process that it's quite off-putting. You know, so many layers, so many steps, so many different products to achieve a look that in real life looks a little bit strange. But I think what was really quite fascinating was that with our salons in Johannesburg, we met thousands and thousands and thousands of women year in, year out. And so we see women in their real form, and they're not covered in makeup. A lot of women are not wearing a lot of makeup. So then you ask, what are all of these videos, you know, and all of these things that are happening online? And they're not really real. They're great for camera, but in real life, women want a solution that helps them cover their imperfections without covering their perfection. And I think that's the magic of Miss London. And to kind of comment on the quote that you said earlier from the professor about Apple's market share being lower than what was in the mind of their customer. I think that that's got to do with the fact that your brand or your product, Apple or Miss London, is solving a problem. And so when, as a problem solver for a particular situation in a person's life, that can never have a value on it. It doesn't matter what your market share is. I know what this stuff is doing for me in my life. And so therefore I put it up here. And I'm so proud of how Miss London has that status in our customers' minds. We did a survey recently asking how disappointed they would be if they could no longer use their Miss London foundation. And A was very disappointed, B was disappointed, C was not disappointed at all. And 95% came back with very disappointed, and comments on the Instagram like, you know, what are you saying? What do you mean? Should I go and buy 5 years worth of foundation now? You know, before. So you see that sort of thing says we're solving a problem where we're helping you live your best life with ease, in the easiest way, so that you can enjoy makeup again. And that's our brand.
Absolutely. Well, I can certainly relate to the concept of easy beauty, because I think once I put on my foundation and my red lip, that is it. I cannot bake or draw lines to save my life. So that's where I connect most ardently. Now, Julia, when you connect and you hear about the concept of brand building, and especially having worked across industry, which is a conversation that we'll bring later on in the discussion, but the concept of mind share and market share and the gap that exists in that, how has that resonated through your journey?
Thank you for having me today, and great to see everyone. You know, your quote could not be absolutely more perfect as an intro, because if you think about the journey that we've had as a family business, a second generation family business, over the last 18 months, and having to actually close one door and open another. And I'm going to jump straight in. It goes directly to consumer mind share versus market share. So I've spent most of my career so far in advertising and in the media magazine world. And obviously when COVID, when we went into lockdown, we had to make an incredibly hard decision and close, you know, a 38-year-old legacy business, which we always said our name was on the door, you know, so that kind of guided all of our actions. And what was so interesting about the closure, if you can call it interesting, it was definitely a learning experience and it was a traumatic experience. But what was interesting was, you know, people's incredible nostalgia around the medium of magazines, even though the business model was very disrupted and challenged in the last few years with digital coming in and going from one channel in print to 8 channels. I think that the consumer's mind share was still very much there, but the market share actually wasn't. And that made it a very difficult business to operate. And COVID kind of was the final blow, almost the end, you know, of an era. It was time to reinvent. It's time to, you know, consumers have an appetite to consume their different feeds and media streams in different ways now. So, we almost have gone through all of that. And now I've started a new business, which I started a year ago, according to LinkedIn, which congratulates you, of course. So that's how you know that you started. The new business is still in the media, still in content, still in creative solutions, but a very much more streamlined model. And I don't want to hog too much time up front or anything, but what I really wanted to say was there's one common theme that I believe is fundamental to building any kind of brand, globally or locally. And for me, it's really about your network. And the network that I built, having the opportunity to launch Cosmo on the market here, it was the first international title, working with a mother, was an incredible role model, and still is, and launching Oprah's magazine here and having that opportunity and all the other brands we worked on to build this global network, which I've now taken through to the new business. And I do believe that, all networks are important, and it's almost a subject on its own, but that's my common theme between my past life and my current life and where I am today.
And Julia, I'm going to stick with you for a moment, and especially on your role in the family business and being the former CEO of Associated Media Publishing, and especially as someone who's worked across various forms of media in multiple industries, in multiple countries and continents. I think we can agree that, and as you cemented that, so much has changed in how we communicate, and not so much in the essence, right, of what we communicate. And my question to you is really to the essence of brand building and going back to the basics. And especially if we don't want to become like a BlackBerry or Kodak or an Associated Media Publishing, right? And you briefly touched on this, but I want you to expand on a couple of the principles, maybe 2 or 3 principles that you've carried, especially with the foreclosure of the publishing firm, when it comes to the tools of the trade. And I think you mentioned that one being the network and the net worth that you bring into the business, but also how you've ushered that into Paradigm Connect.
So I think what really did help us in the media business was we were a fully independent business funded by ourselves. So we could make decisions that were very quick, and it allowed us to be very agile and entrepreneurial. And I think that what's going to help people now in a post-COVID, we're not even there yet, but post-COVID culture is the opportunistic thinkers, the people who are open to collaborating, who have got the belief, but the humility to actually approach people to collaborate. And I think that was kind of very much built into our DNA and into our culture. We always innovated. We were always trying to be first to market. And I think that also helped us build a relationship with our international partners, because South Africa is an incredible place where there's so much creative talent. But it's much harder because the market here is very different to an overseas market. But where we do really shine in excellence is, for example, from a creative point of view. So we did the first transgender cover on Cosmo, and we shot Laverne Cox in the US, but there had never been a transgender actress on an international glossy magazine. So I think it's always keeping your eye on that, like being first to market, spotlighting, being able to spotlight your brand with excellence. And that means you need to find the people that you want to go to war with. And I'm sorry, but business is like war. I mean, maybe I don't want to make it superficially compare it to war, but I mean, it's a long road. It's not a short road. I don't believe there's any shortcut. And I think that those were some of the things that we did. We looked for strategic partnerships. We were forever agile. We innovated all the time, and we weren't afraid to innovate. And if it wasn't working, refine it, tweak it, and stop it. And I think that ultimately we drove a business that we believed in for women, where we drove conversations that really mattered. So there was passion, and relevance. And that also kept us very invested in the business, possibly too long, even, if you look at what actually happened in the end. But there's a lot of emotional connection with brands that you've built up, over 38 years. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Absolutely, agility, innovation, and something that I want to bring to Catherine in what you've mentioned, Julia, is the spotlight on excellence, the shortcuts that sometimes may happen, but also the tools of new media that have really brought in with new platforms like TikToks, and the concept of virality, right? And Catherine, I want to circle back to you on a concept of brand building, right? And especially with social media, with virality. Now, Pitchlick experienced what was known as the Meghan Markle effect, when Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, wore your Maggie earrings on a visit to Johannesburg in 2019. Now, I'm more interested in the sustenance of after virality, because it's such an important component of branding and business development. Take us through the journey behind the scenes of what happened when that virality strikes, the calm that happens after the explosion, and I think most importantly, the techniques, the team, the technologies that really goes into building the brand and continuing to harness that value after the virality has died down.
So I'll start with what happened with Meghan Markle, which was quite an interesting one, because previously we've had hired agents in certain regions for celebrity placement or press, but this happened completely organically and independently. A buyer of hers went into a store in Johannesburg, bought a bunch of earrings with her live, and she decided to wear those. So that was kind of the first step, which feels quite authentic. And I think that that's quite key when you're talking to the nature of virality and connection or brand association, maybe with a leading individual or influencer or personality. So she genuinely liked those pieces. Then she ended up wearing them in our home country. And what's so amazing, which we've been worn by other well-known celebrities, Solange Knowles, various others. And what was quite interesting is the deep-rooted following and copycat culture of the royal family. So, which is a huge phenomenon for me, because I don't follow the royal family. I'm not a royal family enthusiast. Like, it's not my beat. And I know there are a lot of people who are very Anglophilic in that way. But so what ended up happening is suddenly she wears them, and then I didn't even know about it. And the first I heard of it was our online store, seconds apart, just pinging off depth in one product SKU. So for us, that was, you know what I mean? I was kind of like, what's going on? Something happened. And then I had to go out there to try and track it. And suddenly there was this huge influx. And then what was quite incredible is that was happening. And I was like, wow, that's quite an amazing, the depth we hit in 24 hours was insane. We could barely keep up from our own manufacturing capacity. But then the second day, she went and wore another pair of earrings. So we kind of had like a double wave, which was absolutely phenomenal. But what I did at the time, which I think was kind of crucial and also maybe a little bit creepy, is I realized that I'm a little bit of a weird, I'm really into social media. It's, I love all this sort of tech, but more about like the infographics and understanding all of this sort of thing. All the data, I love the data. So then what I ended up doing is trying to understand where are they most prominent, and it's on Facebook, and it's on small Facebook Meghan Markle fan groups. So I went onto each one of these Meghan Markle fan groups and I asked for admission, joined the groups, and I started to link the products to my site. So I was because often people would struggle to necessarily identify where that product was from. So I was shortening that gap of them having to find out who that product was from. And I was giving them a direct link through to my website. So I think what's like kind of my key learnings on that was virality and kind of high demand is only valuable if you have the capacity to fulfill it, A. So it's to be, you know, especially like us, we're a vertical business. So, you know, we are fully responsible for our procurement and our manufacturing. So it's to really be kind of very astute and in alignment with how you could supply demand, because demand, obviously a certain tension of high demand and not being able to fulfill it builds demand. However, if you cannot fulfill it, especially when you're entering a new market share, is you want to be able to deliver on a promise. So I think it's just be in alignment with that on one level. You've got to be, as Julia was commenting on, is being agile, being able, because we also, you know, we own this business, so we could quickly respond. We're independent, you know, we could, you know, kind of wrangle our financial investment in digital spend and leverage off this through imagery and kind of boost that and so forth. So we had a quick turnaround where in a larger kind of bureaucratic company, that all the go-aheads for that could be like 3 weeks later, and you miss that momentum because Meghan Markle's wearing another outfit that people are trying to shop. And then I think what I would also say is, you know, when you're just talking about social media and building a brand, is I think you can choose your medium. So, you know, a lot of people suddenly saw TikTok happening, and then you've got kind of a real misalignment where you've got people who have accreditation suddenly doing dorky dances and trying to jump onto that bandwagon. And I get it, but, you know, I sometimes feel like it's a diversion. I would rather, I think it's more potent, is to choose your mediums, which really aligns with your target market and your audience and their language and how they connect, and rather deep dive into there, because any inauthenticity actually ends up depreciating brand equity and brand trust. So
Absolutely.
those are
And I think what's quite common in all of these engagements around brand building is that connection, right? Is something that completely is coming up so much. But again, to how you are actually beginning to craft those techniques, the ability and the capability to be able to do that is listening to the data, you know, and then turning that into intelligence that you can use for your business, so that you can make these decisions, which can then enable you to be able to catalyze the innovation and be agile, and of course harness the value from that medium. So thanks so much for that, Catherine. Ego,
I'd like to add one more point just to that.
Absolutely.
Sorry to interject. I just think the one thing is make the consumer journey easy. So the simple idea to shorten the time and the lag of people searching to find who we were in association with Meghan Markle made that click through quicker. And I think that's where you kind of, that's where the digital space becomes so exciting, is you can have instantaneous impact. And it's about one as a founder or as an owner of a business is try and think about where the barriers are and remove them. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that becomes then also quite prevalent, especially in the COVID world, because that was also a pre-COVID world. And I think during COVID, I think you're trying to find ways to connect more with your consumer. And I think, Ego, this is the perfect segue to move into how your business, being in hospitality, being in wellness, was impacted. I think after the first announcement of lockdown in South Africa, due of course to the pandemic, you shared quite an earnest and vulnerable moment of overnight loss in your business with Miss London, experiencing up to 90% of business revenue. And I'm not sure if keeping the Miss London social media accounts was the first thing that you may have thought about when experiencing these kinds of challenges, and especially trying to get revenue back up. So how do you keep the brand pulse alive when a challenge like COVID surprises you in the middle of the night, or at 8 o'clock during the presidential addresses? And what are the components of Miss London's essence and branding that you think kept it alive as you were going through this period?
So what's interesting about the beauty business is that it's always been one of those non-essentials. And it's because it's just, it's not about your life, it's about the fun and games, and it's like a affordable luxury. So when COVID happened and we were closed, as in the salons were closed, we were not 90% down, we were 100% closed. And then our orders from Woolworths were cancelled, and we had a very substantial monthly turnover on Miss London Cosmetics, and this big order that we were about to fulfill just got cancelled. And so really the point that I really want to make is that whilst you're a brand and a business and all of this amazing stuff, you're also a human being behind all of it. And this stuff happens and your heart is broken. Your soul is crushed. You're totally confused. You're wondering whether you should have become a doctor like your father wanted you to be. And, why did I go and open salons? And I had, in the very beginning, when it was only 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I can't remember, because remember there was various levels and we were going to come back after 2 weeks and so on. So in the very beginning, it was all very fun and games. And it was like, oh my gosh, we've got a holiday for 2 weeks. Isn't this fun? And then when it got deeper and deeper and deeper into it, that heaviness in the chest started to take over. And then you start to question. I had major self-doubt, like, what was this all about? Why would anybody care about their nails or about their makeup when, we've got a worldwide pandemic and people are dying? What is the value of your business? And then the term non-essential was what was being told. We were told we were non-essential. And so I had to take that in. I had to internalize that and figure out what that would mean to me as the driver behind these brands, And so I started a podcast called The Non-Essential Entrepreneur, and I really started to just talk to a whole load of entrepreneurs, just also to get some kind of idea of what everybody else was thinking. What do you think? Do you think you're non-essential? Do you think your stuff is like useless to life? But in a recent interview, I was asked about ultimately what COVID and this pandemic has done to the beauty industry, and what it has done months and months later is that it's made all of us realize that it's not just about makeup, or it's not just about your nails. It's about your being. It's about self-care. It's about feeling good about yourself. It's about grooming and maintaining a feeling, a quality of life. And that is the magic of the brand. And it was in that soul searching. I mean, what the pandemic and lockdown did was basically make myself, Linda, all of us, like, dig deep and try to understand what it is that we really are here to do, what we're offering. And our customers told us. They're the ones that told us, oh my God, what am I going to do with these nails? They've grown out. Oh my God, what am I going to do with this hair? What am I going to do with my face? I've put on 10 kilos now because I don't care. You see, that's the thing. If you stop caring, you'll go and eat an extra piece of cake because it doesn't matter, right? You're not going anywhere. No one cares. I don't care. Do I even brush my teeth in the morning? What difference does it make, right? So we realized that people care and they want it and they need it. And the thing about our salons and the thing about our makeup is that we have always been about the lifestyle and the feeling. We've always been a girls' club in our salons. Our makeup has always been about covering your imperfections so that your perfection is showing. So we've always been about that self-care and that feel-good factor anyway. So as soon as the doors were opened again, people were back and we were excited to see them. And it all came out in the soul, in the heart. And that's how we actually decided to stay. I remember at one point saying to Linda, should we stay open? Should we? And she was like, Ego, let's do it. They're going to come back. They're going to come back. And the customers came back. And, you know, and I think we're stronger than ever. Like we're stronger than ever, not just in terms of turnover and everything. Of course, we had to, on a more sort of business level, once I kind of got out of the funk of disaster, we upped our online game. Our online sales went up 450%. We were really ready for that. Our infrastructure in the cosmetics company in particular is very lean. We don't have any sort of bleeding of cash, wastage anywhere. Everything is very, very lean, very tight. So we were able to just ride out the hard times and come out the other end, and still continue to service our customers with quality, not just hanging on. You know, we're still, the salons are still great quality, the product's perfect. It's, you know, so that's how we got through. But it's in here first. You've got to believe that your business is worth something to somebody, and put that forward, put your best, your foundations, the core of your business forward, and that's what people will buy.
Absolutely, and coming back to that easy beauty, right? And I want to stay on making a comeback, right, or exploring new ventures. And Julia, I'm going to bring you back into this conversation, and particularly with you and Ego. You both started businesses in the midst of a global pandemic, and I believe doing so really qualifies you as an entrepreneur, because that's one of the crazy things that entrepreneurs do, right? They do the impossible, or they find opportunities in the midst of such an economic crisis. Now, you also cannot tips and tricks your way into launching a new venture, especially given such a heavy climate, economic climate, like the one that we're in, and especially in South Africa. With what, when we're talking about resources, right? With what do you build a new venture? With what do you build a new brand, especially one that started or that's begun at such a time? And Ego, I'll stick with you, and then I'll bring Julia back into this, because it is a crazy thing to start a new business in the middle of a global pandemic.
Yeah, yes, it is a crazy thing, and it's but it's only crazy if you're not crazy. So you've got it's in you. You know, I always think that entrepreneurs are born. I think it's just in your spirit. You can't help but do it. So we had started to look into funding the cosmetics company to expand outside of Africa. And so that process had already started late 2019. And then when the pandemic hit, the investors kind of disappeared. And I was going through that soul-searching moment. And then as the universe would have it, they jumped up and said, listen, this is going to be really good, especially if we set up something online. And I thought, yeah, because our sales have really shot up online. Let's try something online. And so we basically raised the VC funding in October 2020 and created a spin-off brand off of Miss London that is now completely US based, online, direct to consumer in the USA.
Absolutely. And I think, Julia, I'm going to bring you into this conversation as well, because it seems as though for both you and Ego, the ventures are also in alignment to the industries that you're in, right?
Correct. So I think, when you said about entrepreneurs, I don't know if we're entrepreneurs or we just love what we do or we workaholics. But the one thing that I actually said to myself that I'm not going to become in my second life is a busy fool. And I think, going ahead with that kind of mindset, because when you have a big organization with lots of people, you're very, very busy all the time. And at points in, this kind of like busy day, you forget to look at your return and your profit, and you just become a busy fool. So that is my mantra now. No more busy fool. I think one of the reasons why I did just start a business, and we were actually going to do it on Women's Day, and then we said, should we? And then we thought, yeah, that's a good day to start a business. But the reason why we started it was, first of all, we were presented with an opportunity in the telco space. So where they have an incredible ecosystem, but they don't have any really great content that speaks to women, and especially women who are like the fun, fearless females. And that's kind of what we did. We lived, we breathed it, and we were presented with this opportunity. So that kind of kick-started us. But I wouldn't have been able to do this if I didn't have at my side a partner who I could absolutely trust. And I think, going through business over many years, you make some bad hires, you make some bad JV decisions, and you learn that, that trust is just that critical element. And often you don't even know it until you're too deeply in. But my partner worked with me for 20 years. She actually was the MD when we closed the business. And before that, she was in a JV that we were in a very happy relationship with for many years. So, having someone that, like, we just work so brilliantly together that it doesn't feel like work. And so we started with this opportunity with a telco, which is actually going live in September or November now. It's taken that long to sort of get it off the ground. But during that time, the last year, people just sort of approached us, and again, through the network, we started working on content with quite a few global partners. So producing social media content calendars. And because we'd come from a business where we'd had to explore all those social media platforms, and we understood a broad-based media ecosystem, not just a singular platform, we had kind of a lot of learnings, and we could support a client with, more than, say, one solution via content only, but more from a business perspective as well. So we've ended up doing strategy, we've ended up doing content. We're working, about 50% of our clients are overseas, which is nice because you can benefit from the exchange rate, and we produce brilliant work for them. So it's as good, if not better, than what they could get there, but it's at a cost-effective rate. And I suppose ultimately it's just a more streamlined model where we've ended up working with our ex-Cosmo editor, our ex-Cosmo fashion editor, our ex-digital team, all the people that actually, unfortunately, did not have a job. They've either gone and started their own businesses, which we are now supporting through bringing them business. But the bottom line is there's no risk to us. So I think after many years of waking up at 4 a.m. and wondering how, we were going to get enough revenue to fund what was quite a costly overhead business, we now can work so much more efficiently, which is a relief. And it's just been so natural. And I love it because you never know what's happening on a daily basis. Opportunities pop up which you can explore. You are free to move between industries versus being in one industry. And it's kind of like, your door's always open, but being a seasoned professional with some battle scars, I do think that you're able to take advantage of the opportunities that are now popping up. They might not be obvious opportunities, but there are always opportunities.
I absolutely love that. The battle scars that you have to go global. But I think also another important element of this is as well is the people that you choose to build with, right? Because you're not only building a brand, you're building a culture, right? And I think that then feeds into the agility and the innovation that really comes out and that you can harness to eventually then feed into your customers. So thank you so much for that, Julia. Catherine, Pitcherlick is made in Africa and is a global brand. For the women and entrepreneurs who are tuned in today, when they expect to concentrate their effort and budget in when they're wanting to develop a resilient and a growing and a global brand?
So I think you're looking at it at twofold. So it's one about building out into a market, and then it's another is building the back end infrastructure in order to confidently and efficiently and effectively supply that demand that you're building. But I think I obviously can't talk to all industries, but if you're specifically looking at an outward facing industry such as mine with a direct to consumer, I guess non-essential, as Ego said, goods, beautiful things. I think I would invest in imagery, because I think a lot of the times I would invest in good imagery, good storytelling, because that's something that I did as a brand quite young, and a lot of other brands who kind of started at a similar time didn't invest in that. They thought they could do it on the fly, quickly take some pics, not invest in proper models, makeup artists, and really nothing else can really position your brand with the brand equity and give you access market quite like that when you are not there. So we were able to, from an early stage, we created professional press kits, with confident press releases, well-labeled images, proper deep-edged product shots. So we made it easier, as I'm sure Julian knows from being in the publishing space for so long, is we made it easier for them to include us in their print. We made it easier for them to share and dispense our brand story. You kind of end up cutting your nose to spite your face if you don't invest in that, yet you're trying to break into international markets. And also, often there's these old stigmas around third world countries and what we can do from a creative sense, and especially the value add and finesse and our capacity to play in the luxury market. I would really strongly advise that you invest in good imagery, good storytelling that's authentic and connected to your brand values, and make it incredibly accessible and easy for someone who is wanting to dispense it for them to use it. So having it properly labeled, a professional access point, and so forth.
Julia, I see you nodding your head quite vigorously.
I am. I'm like, yes, I totally agree. And I put in the chat here, to your point, Catherine, never accept mediocre. Always go for standout, exceptional, whatever it is you do. And I see so much content out there that really is quite bland. It has no point of differentiation. It's just more clutter. And it's just quite interesting because I always follow immediately, even if we have been approached by a potential client. And I suppose with us, we felt very, very strongly about investing in the quality of our brands. And even when times were really tough and, we had to kind of always look for, do we cut the pages, in terms of the book size? Do we cut the quality of the paper? Do we cut the print order? And eventually you're left with nothing because you keep diluting the consumer's experience of your brand. And that's also why it's so important to understand every single medium as a consumer, as a user. A Facebook audience is very different to an Instagram, to a LinkedIn. And that was also one of the challenges we had in our business when we employed people. Because in the beginning, or in the old days, we used to say okay, well, which magazine do you read to sort of get an idea in an interview situation? But then we started to ask people, where do you get your news? Where do you get your inspiration? To see if they were plugged in and they actually understood the difference in all the different platforms, because they are not the same. But it comes down to not kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face by reducing the quality. Rather do less and brilliant. And that's what will help you stand out. You stay true to your brand's core. And ultimately, it's a much better strategy for the long haul.
Absolutely. And I think quite a common theme here as well is in the team, right? The team that you get to build, and where you actually invest that capital. And I'm going to bring in Ego into this. Before, I have been informed that I have about 5 minutes, but I'll take the chance. But Ego, especially if you have received venture funding, right? And you are going online, and there's managing those expectations. I think if you have received funding from be it the bank or grant funding, as opposed to getting venture capital funding, there's that expectation that you have to manage, right? If you're wanting to accelerate. So how big of a role does, betting on the horse and betting on those people to help you build brilliantly, right? And to Julia's point, rather doing less and focusing intensity on the team that you're building to help execute this brand that you're building, because it's not just you on the team, right?
Right. And this is the first time I've ever had VC funding. And I think the key thing about VC funding is that it's for accelerated growth. It's about doing stuff a lot quicker than you would normally do, and you were just growing organically. So with that type of pressure on you kind of, I mean, at least I've been in business for 20 years and 20 plus years now. And so the point at that point was to try and bring in all of your learnings, like bring it all in and decide, right, what is it that I have found out in the last 20 years that really work? Like, how do you get to your customer? How do you touch their heart? How do you make them buy into you? And so the first big spend of that money, other than obviously packaging and branding and the product, etc., which we already had and we were just rebranding it, was in a PR and marketing person who was going to revisit the language that we use to describe what we do and who we are. And basically, this amazing woman sat with us for weeks and weeks and has created what is called a brand playbook. And, we've got this 40 pages of detailed we really dug into what is it that we are, who are we, why are we here, what problem are we solving, what stories are we telling, how are we telling the stories. And then from that, you kind of take away 3, maximum 4, maybe sentences that really kind of just put the whole thing into a clean package. And those 4 sentences or those 4 lenses that you're looking at your product through, those are through those lenses, you then build your whole social media, your website, your images are all around that. So if one of our sentences, which is true, one of our sentences is it's not makeup, it's self-care, then what does that actually mean? It means that, when we put a picture out on our website about the product, we're not going to put this perfect human being with no flaws and all that. We're going to show you a person who is finding joy in looking beautifully herself, right? So that's what I'm saying. So we invested in a very, very well thought through brand playbook, which has helped us create the lenses through which we put all of our social media and our website images, text, stories through those lenses. And then as we get press and as we get interest starts to build, then we respond to whoever, whatever magazine, if it's a business type one, Forbes or Fortune or something like that, then we tell the story of the founders and how we got there and what was our inspiration. And then, if it's a Cosmopolitan or Allure or something like that, then we're telling the story of how we are solving real women's problems through beauty. So I think it's really important to invest in a brand playbook. you will be absolutely surprised at what comes out when you've got enough people all talking about the product. And it doesn't happen in one sitting, it happens over 6 months, because as you take the photo and you look and you go, oh my God, that's it, this is the feeling, I can see the feeling. You show the feeling to 10 other people and they go, yes, I can see the feeling in that. And you think, okay, there, that's what we're looking for. And, you know, you start to build from there. That brand playbook has had, you know, is dynamic. It gets updated as time goes on, you know, and as we get feedback, because you get feedback online, don't you? You post something and then you see, does anybody like that? You know, you post something else and then, whoosh, you know, everybody's liking that one. And you think, what was it? What was it? It was the sunlight. It was the product. It was the, you know, and so on.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, as we wrap up, and I have been given 3 minutes by the multiple people in my ear to wrap up this session, is that brand is a living thing. Right? It's a living organism, and it'll constantly evolve, and it will be dynamic. And whether that's, you know, due to the management change or the product expansion, but so many components can definitely influence the evolution of the characteristic of a brand. Now, as I mentioned, I have been given 3 minutes, so I'd like to give you ladies 1 minute each, and I think as we invite your closing remarks, I'd like you to pair that with either a branding tool or a resource or a community that you would like to share with our Ignite community to ignite and catalyze their brand building mission. Catherine, I'm going to circle back to you.
No, start with someone else. I'm thinking. I'm not ready.
I didn't hear what you were, sorry, I got distracted by some of the questions on here. What do you want us to say in the last minutes?
Oh, absolutely. So I think it's in your closing remarks, just to wrap up for 30 seconds, and then also a resource that you can share with people, right? Whether it's a book, whether it is a tool, whether it is a community that they can join to really start or perhaps continue their brand building process. And Catherine, I'm going to pull you back in, cool. and for you to look at it as though you're going viral, right? So you have to stay ready.
You know what I'll actually say? I think this is a good parting one, specifically around differentiation, is I think what happens, we tend to be very referential. So we spend too much time on Pinterest and mindlessly scrolling and duplicating what we're seeing outside of there, and not actually getting really still and clear, as you're also talking about with your own brand Bible or brand playbook, and you end up just carbon copying something. I think what I would kind of challenge young business owners, young creatives on, and business owners, is really try to be observant and curious in your living world. So, you know, whatever your industry is at, you know, like if you're in the beauty space, is like, go in and spend time within, a beauty counters and see what sort of women walk to what sort of counters, you know, what seem to be their questions. Like, be observant of your environment. Stop just spending space, copying and viewing and trying to imitate and create fantastic mood boards and wonderful business plans for 5 years, and actually get out into the real world and try and test and hear and listen and have conversations. Because I think that is going to be the most vital stuff that'll inform and authentically inform what you do in a way that is authentically yours.
Absolutely. And Julia, I'm going to pass the digital mic to you. And you mentioned that you took it that seriously. You took branding that seriously, that you called it the brand Bible and not just the playbook, as Ego mentioned.
And we use that to inspire people and to induct people into this culture of, especially with Cosmo. It was very clear what Cosmo stood for. But anyway, that was just one of the tools. But now I've got about 10 seconds. But what I would like to say is, you know, if you can find a mentor, and I know it's not that easy to actually find a mentor, but, you know, somebody that you respect and who has got a lot of experience, because it's a process often. And, you might even need different mentors at different times in your life. But it is quite hard to wrap up. And I think that might sort of answer the question about going to war and strategic partnerships. If you have a mentor who is well placed, they can also do the intro and point you in the right direction. So I think that people are open to mentoring more these days, because there are more people working from home, there are more people accessible via, you can have a meeting with somebody in London or Europe, anywhere in Europe, or Johannesburg or Cape Town, virtually. So it is easier to access people, but always with respect for their time. So prepare properly and take the mentorship relationship seriously. That's what I would say as a sort of a sum up.
Absolutely. And I think, I think we lost you there for a moment. But I think absolutely, going into really the environment where people are in, getting a mentor or even a career sponsor. But Ego, how do we wrap up a resource that you think will really be so integral to this conversation?
Think Don Miller, Story Brand. Don Story Brand is the name of the book. The author is Don Miller. He has written, he breaks it down. He breaks it down as into how to tell the story of your brand. And I think that if you're if you're in that stage where you're about to start a business, or you've just started and it's a little bit all over the place, and you need to kind of bring it together and get a fresh look and build your brand Bible, playbook, etc., then that book by Don Miller is amazing. He actually also does a course on brand storytelling, and he just breaks it down into pockets so you can work on each section. So yeah, that's definitely one of the resources that I would recommend. And the other one is to say that you can actually find ways of creating a survey. The word is not survey. What's the other word? The word for when you get feedback from people. You don't have to do it on your own. You don't have to sit there and conjure. You can come up with the idea, but then you can put it out into the world and see what people think of it before you invest a ton of money in that particular packaging or that particular name, because you might also find that no one likes what you called it. So go out there and try and do as much research as you can, join the communities, ask if people are willing to be, I've forgotten what it's called.
To build, measure, and learn and reiterate, right?
Yeah. So they joined the group. It's a group. What's it called? Focus group. Create a focus group. Your brand is still in infancy. Create a focus group of the type of people that you think will be your customer, and then put it in front of them. You can do these focus groups online now. We don't have to be, in person. And honestly, you will find out things that you could never have imagined. And it would really help in the direction of those 4 sentences.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you so much, ladies. And that really brings us so strongly to the end of what has been such a phenomenal week 2 of Ignites Women in Africa virtual program with Julia Raffaeli, the CEO of Paradigm Connect, Catherine Pechulik, the founder, co-CEO, and creative director of Pechulik Jewelry, and Ego Iwegbu, the CEO and founder of Miss London Cosmetics. Visit www.womensmonth.co.za. That's womensmonth.co.za for more information and to ensure that you are registered and engage with the survey that is on the screen, or should be coming up on the screen in the next few seconds, to, of course, help us build a better brand and value for you and how we could better serve you. I am Violeta Debese, and an absolute pleasure it has been to be your moderator today. Goodbye.
Bye,
ladies. So nice to meet you.
So lovely.
Bye. Bye. Do have a lovely day. Have a lovely evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.